What if the most shocking twist in the Gilded Age Season 4 isn't just clever writing, but something ripped straight from history? Imagine George Russell, the man who's always been fiercely devoted to his wife Bertha, suddenly caught in the center of an affair rumor that could destroy everything they've built. For years, fans have admired the Russells as a power couple who could outwit rivals, dominate society, and protect each other's reputations at all costs. But now, whispers are spreading in New York's most exclusive parlors, and the story isn't just about fictional drama, it's about a scandal with eerie similarities to a real-life event from America's Gilded Age. Could the man who's conquered railroads, crushed enemies, and stood proudly beside Bertha really be hiding a betrayal that mirrors one of history's most talked-about affairs? George Russell's on-screen journey so far has been one of ambition, calculated risks, and unwavering loyalty to Bertha. In the earlier seasons, we've seen George fight fierce battles to keep his business empire intact, often using his sharp wit and financial power to crush rivals who dared to challenge him. While Bertha pursued her dream of breaking into New York's old money society, George acted as her steadfast supporter, never letting his wife face rejection or ridicule alone. Their partnership was more than just a marriage, it was a strategic alliance, one that combined his financial muscle with her social intelligence. This bond made them one of the most formidable couples in the series, feared by enemies and admired by allies, yet Season 4 hints at a fracture in this seemingly unshakable relationship. Trailers and early set leaks suggest moments where George appears distracted, meeting privately with a mysterious new figure who seems to have entered his orbit unexpectedly. In scenes layered with tension, George is shown exchanging glances and having hushed conversations in dimly lit corners of lavish parties. These moments are subtle, but in a world where gossip spreads faster than truth, they're enough to ignite suspicions. And in the glittering, competitive society of 19th century New York, a rumor is as good as a confession, especially if it involves someone like George Russell. Bertha's character has always been portrayed as fiercely protective of her image. In past seasons, she's faced public humiliation only to rise stronger, turning insults into opportunities. But an affair rumor isn't just a threat to her social standing, it's a personal betrayal that could shatter the trust she's built with George over years of shared victories. Her reaction in Season 4, based on the fragments we've seen, ranges from subtle coldness to moments of quiet but unmistakable fury. This dynamic between them love tested by scandal sets the stage for some of the most emotionally charged scenes in the series. The real hook, though, is the possible historical connection. Fans of the Gilded Age know the show often blends fiction with fact, drawing from actual figures and events to add depth to its storytelling. In this case, the rumored affair storyline has striking similarities to a well-documented scandal involving a powerful industrialist from the real Gilded Age. This real figure, much like George, was known for his influence in business and politics and for the shocking revelation that nearly destroyed his marriage. The parallels are too close to ignore, raising the possibility that the writers are intentionally weaving this real-life drama into George's arc. If these connections are true, then Season 4 isn't just telling a story, it's reimagining a piece of history, giving fans a glimpse of how such a scandal might have unfolded behind the closed doors of New York's wealthiest mansions. And if that's the case, George Russell's alleged affair could be more than a plot twist. It could be a reflection of how even the most powerful men of the Gilded Age were vulnerable to the same temptations, mistakes, and public scrutiny as anyone else. The difference? In their world, the fallout was played out on the grandest stage imaginable, in the Gilded Age Season 4. The first spark of George Russell's alleged affair doesn't erupt with a dramatic confession or a scandalous public scene. It begins quietly, almost invisibly, in the gilded shadows of New York's high society. The setting is perfect for whispers to take root: candlelit ballrooms, hushed conservatories, and drawing rooms where the air smells of expensive perfume and danger. It all starts when George is spotted leaving a private meeting with a striking new arrival in the city, a woman whose name instantly turns heads among the elite. She's introduced as a widow from Europe with substantial wealth, mysterious origins, and a charm that seems to command the attention of every man in the room, including, allegedly, George Russell. The woman's arrival is already enough to stir curiosity. She doesn't cling to anyone, yet she seems to glide into influential circles effortlessly. One moment she's seen laughing softly with the Vanderbilts. The next she's leaning in close to George at an opera intermission, her hand brushing his as if by accident or perhaps not. The interaction is brief, but in a city where gossip is currency, it's all that's needed for the first whispers to circulate. By the end of the evening, society's most skillful rumor weavers are already suggesting that George's interest in her might be more than casual politeness. What makes the situation more explosive is timing. In Season 4's early episodes, George is shown as unusually preoccupied with business matters that take him away from home at odd hours. Meetings run late, dinners are missed, and Bertha is left making excuses for his absence at important social gatherings. The excuse of railway negotiations begins to wear thin, especially when his supposed meetings line up suspiciously with sightings of the mysterious widow at private salons and art showings. It's the sort of detail that old money society latches onto not because they believe it immediately, but because it's simply too tantalizing to ignore. Then comes the moment that shifts the rumor from idle curiosity to burning scandal. A charity gala, one of the largest events of the season, where George arrives noticeably late. Bertha, ever poised, has been entertaining guests for over an hour when he finally enters, accompanied not by a fellow businessman, but by the very woman whose name has been threading through whispers for weeks. The two are not arm in arm, but their proximity is enough to turn heads. The widow's gown, bold in color and cut, makes her impossible to miss, and the faintest smile they exchange as they part ways is more damning in the eyes of society than any direct evidence could be. From this point on, the rumor takes on a life of its own. Servants overhear fragments of conversation. A doorman reports seeing George's carriage outside the widow's townhouse late at night, and a well-known gossip columnist writes a thinly veiled piece about a railroad tycoon whose heart may be switching tracks. The damage is subtle yet relentless, each story layered over the next until it becomes impossible to separate truth from invention. Bertha, who has always been the master of social maneuvering, begins to sense the danger. Her interactions with George grow clipped, her smiles tighter, and her eyes sharper as she assesses every detail. In private, she questions him, but George, true to form, remains calm, insisting the meetings are strictly business. Yet his refusal to offer specifics only deepens her suspicion. Bertha knows better than most that, in their world, perception often matters more than reality, and perception is beginning to turn against them. The beauty of this storyline lies in how the writers layer tension without immediate resolution. Every glance, every overheard word, every conveniently timed absence builds on the last, pulling the audience into the same uncertainty as Bertha herself. We are left questioning not just George's actions, but the motives of everyone involved, because in the ruthless hierarchy of New York's Gilded Age, a well-placed scandal can be a weapon more powerful than any fortune if this arc truly mirrors the real-life historical affair it's rumored to be inspired by. Then these early stages are only the beginning. Just as in history, what starts as whispers at the edges of high society could soon erupt into a full-blown public reckoning, one that threatens not only a marriage, but an empire. The alleged affair in the Gilded Age Season 4 doesn't just feel scandalous, it feels familiar, almost as if we've seen this drama play out before. That's because whispers among dedicated fans and history buffs suggest the writers may have drawn inspiration from one of the most infamous real-life scandals of America's actual Gilded Age. It's the story of a powerful industrialist whose empire was as vast as his social influence and whose carefully cultivated reputation was nearly shattered when rumors of an affair with a socially ambitious woman began to swirl. Just like George Russell, this man stood at the center of wealth, politics, and high society, and like George, he seemed untouchable, until a personal scandal threatened to change everything. In the real historical incident, the industrialist was known for his dominance in railroads and steel, commanding not just massive financial resources but also political loyalty. He was married to a woman of exceptional social skill, a hostess who could command attention in any ballroom and secure alliances that advanced her husband's business interests. Their partnership was as much a strategic alliance as it was a marriage, echoing the dynamic between George and Bertha Russell. For years, they operated as a flawless team, presenting an image of unity that made them one of the most admired couples of their era. But behind the scenes, ambition and temptation were brewing. The historical other woman wasn't a mere society ornament. She was clever, resourceful, and unafraid to position herself in the company of powerful men. She arrived in New York with an intriguing backstory that blended glamour with mystery, instantly drawing the attention of both the press and the city's elite. According to newspaper gossip columns of the time, she and the industrialist were seen together at private dinners, the opera, and carriage rides through Central Park. While nothing was ever confirmed in public, the sightings were enough to plant seeds of doubt, and those seeds grew quickly in the fertile soil of Gilded Age. Gossip culture. This real-life scandal even had its own media frenzy. Newspapers, hungry for sensational headlines, ran suggestive but legally cautious stories about a prominent businessman entangled in a private matter of the heart. The names were never printed, but everyone in the right social circles knew who the articles referred to. The industrialist's wife was forced to navigate a treacherous social landscape, attending events with her husband while rumors swirled, maintaining a perfect facade to protect not only her marriage but also their standing in society. The scandal tested her in ways that went far beyond emotional pain. It was a strategic battle to hold on to influence in a world that could turn on her in an instant. The parallels to George Russell's storyline in the Gilded Age are striking. In the show, George is depicted as being drawn, whether innocently or not, into the orbit of a mysterious, socially savvy woman whose presence disrupts the fragile balance of his marriage. Just like the historical industrialist, George is a man of immense power whose personal reputation is tied directly to his professional success. If he is seen as untrustworthy in his private life, that perception could bleed into his business dealings, making allies hesitate and enemies pounce. There's even a thematic similarity in how both the real and fictional scandals begin subtly, with ambiguous interactions that could be innocent but are easily misinterpreted in a competitive, gossip-fueled environment. In both cases, the alleged affair becomes less about the truth of the relationship and more about the perception of impropriety, perception that can be weaponized by rivals. For the historical couple, the affair rumor didn't destroy them outright, but it left a mark on their legacy that historians still discuss today. For George and Bertha Russell, the question remains whether their bond will survive intact or whether this will be the storyline that finally tests their unity to the breaking point. By drawing from a real-life scandal, the show's writers add layers of authenticity to the drama. Viewers aren't just watching a soap opera twist, they're engaging with a reimagining of the kinds of high-stakes, personal battles that actually took place behind the gilded doors of Fifth Avenue mansions. It's a reminder that history is often messier, more passionate, and more dangerous than we imagine, and that in the world of the Gilded Age, the truth is often just as scandalous as the fiction, asterisk if the alleged affair storyline in the Gilded Age Season 4 is truly unfolding the way fans suspect. Then the consequences could ripple through the show in ways far beyond George and Bertha's marriage. This isn't just about romance or betrayal, it's about the delicate balance of power, reputation, and survival in a world where social standing is as valuable as any fortune. In the rarefied air of 1880s New York, perception is everything. And even the suggestion of impropriety can alter the course of alliances, fortunes, and futures. For George, the risk is twofold. On a personal level, the fracture in his marriage could undermine the very foundation of his life. Bertha has been his most trusted ally, the one person who understands the strategic dance of both business and society. Without her support, George is vulnerable not because he lacks business acumen, but because she controls access to a world that money alone can't buy. If Bertha withdraws her cooperation, The Russell household could lose the unity that has made them a force to be reckoned with. On a public level, George's name could become tainted in the eyes of potential partners and investors. In an era where trust and personal honor were woven tightly into business dealings, even unproven scandal could be enough for rivals to question his reliability. For Bertha, the alleged affair presents a different but equally dangerous challenge. She has spent years clawing her way into the uppermost tier of New York society, facing snubs from old money families and slowly turning them into grudging allies or even friends. Her position is hard-won, and it rests on the image of a flawless household. If society's hostesses begin to see her as a wronged wife, her invitations might not dry up completely, but they would carry a different flavor. She could become a figure of pity rather than power, her influence diminished in the subtle yet devastating ways only high society can manage. Bertha knows this, and her every move will likely be calculated to maintain control of the narrative, whether that means confronting George privately, striking back at the alleged other woman, or turning the rumor to her advantage in some unforeseen way. The ripple effects wouldn't stop with the Russells. In the competitive ecosystem of the Gilded Age, other characters could see opportunity in the Russells' potential downfall. Rivals like Ward McAllister or those in the Van Ryn household could use the scandal to undermine Bertha's social dominance. Business adversaries might attempt to exploit George's supposed distraction, pushing through deals that would otherwise be impossible. Even allies could be tempted to distance themselves, unwilling to be caught in the crossfire of a very public humiliation. What's fascinating about this potential arc is that it forces every character to take a side or at least pretend to. Loyalties will be tested not just between husband and wife, but across the sprawling network of society connections the Russells have built. Will their closest friends stand by them, or will they retreat into self-preservation? And perhaps more intriguingly, how will the mysterious widow at the center of the storm respond to the attention? If she's as strategic as she appears, she may use the publicity to strengthen her own position, regardless of whether the affair is real or fabricated. Season 4 could use this scandal to explore themes far deeper than marital fidelity. At its core, this storyline is about power, who has it, who can take it away, and what it costs to keep it. It's about the way reputations can be built over decades and destroyed in a single season. And it's about how, in the Gilded Age, love and loyalty were often intertwined with politics, wealth, and survival. The emotional fallout for George and Bertha could be devastating, but in the ruthless social arena they inhabit, the stakes are even higher than heartbreak. They are fighting for their place in history. If history is any guide, this will not be a quiet battle. Whether the affair is fact or fiction, the Russells will be forced into a confrontation that could define the rest of the series. George may have to choose between defending his honor publicly or protecting his wife's dignity in private. Bertha may have to decide whether to forgive, retaliate, or reinvent herself entirely. And in true Gilded Age fashion, the truth may matter less than the story everyone chooses to believe. By the end of this arc, one thing is certain: the Russells will not emerge unchanged. They will either rise from the scandal stronger than ever, cementing their status as the ultimate power couple, or they will fracture under the weight of public scrutiny, leaving the door open for new players to seize the throne of New York society. For fans, that's the tantalizing promise of Season 4, that the glittering world we've come to love is as fragile, dangerous, and unpredictable as the real history that inspired it.